how did it come out? Like, how did they?
The boy's mother ended up finding it.
Fucking finding it? What do you mean? Snapchat goes away, right? How they?
He probably saved it. You can screen record, take screenshots.
You got to know that that's gonna happen. Crazy shit.
Yeah, it says Teen's parent reportedly found the photos up on his phone, which he saved from Snapchat. Also, Mom, quit being a cock block. Who knows where this would have went, you know? Am I right, fellas?
Why have your student, why have a 15-year-old, why, the whole thing is just...
He sent a picture.
2 years in jail?
Hello, everyone. Keep your hands to yourselves. We've got a special edition of Drop the Mic coming for you. I believe that the Joe Rogan crew is under attack. And some of it is justified. Some of it I don't quite understand. But we will get into it this week. So if you haven't heard, it started with Chris D'Elia, who is a comedian that I have reviewed on this program before. I've never thought he was particularly funny. He seems to me like a guy that got into comedy to fuck women. Like, he just has that vibe about him. Maybe I'm totally wrong. The evidence would suggest I'm not. But he has sort of a frat boy douchebag vibe. And, you know, that's coming from me. So it doesn't even resonate with someone like me. It's the problem with Chris D'Elia is just referring to his stand-up. I'll get into his off-the-field resume in a bit. But the problem with his stand-up is there's no... In lieu of punchlines, he uses silly voices or phraseology. Kind of like we would talk about Fitzy, where he says words funny or does a voice rather than actually writing a punchline. He's not a particularly funny guy. I guess he's very handsome. So they tell me. But, you know, he just seems like that kind of a guy that got into comedy so he could wow girl. Like, he could have an impressive job that women would look at fondly. And it seems like he used that to his advantage. Now, a lot of these screenshots coming out. So our friend Michaela Oakland exposed this on the She Rates Dogs Twitter account. I know it is my shtick to immediately, because I defend Louis C.K., everyone thinks I defend every sexual predator. That's not the case. I think a lot of what D'Elia appeared to be doing was wrong. However, I do think some of the way it's handled is a little scary. So Michaela Oakland puts out these screenshots that she has based on nothing really. Like, as far as I know, she didn't do any real research. She just gets these screenshots. Now, I would say that the sheer volume of tweets I've seen with screenshots of emails and Snapchats and videos and all this shit from Chris D'Elia would suggest that all these women didn't get together and all around the country and randomly lie on a Wednesday in June. But it is a little scary that basically what journalism is now is Michaela Oakland getting some DMs and just putting it out there with no real way of looking into it. Now, turns out if Chris D'Elia is guilty, what she did is very good. So credit to her, I guess. She has a big following. She exposed this guy. So good for her. It is a little strange, though, that now that's kind of the judge and jury. Whatever Twitter says, we go with. For example, someone like Whitney Cummings. I first found out about Chris D'Elia when Whitney Cummings had this awful NBC show where Chris D'Elia played the boyfriend. Probably about 10 years ago, 9 years ago or so on NBC. And Chris D'Elia was there. You know, it wasn't a very funny show, but somehow in his early 30s, he got this good role on NBC. I had never heard of him as a stand-up before that. I guess maybe he's an actor. But Whitney Cummings was good to him. She puts out a statement the other day, basically immediately denouncing him. Now, I do find that interesting. It's tough to say what would happen if someone close to me did that. I think that, you know, I may take some time. I may not immediately react. So either Whitney Cummings kind of knew this all along and didn't really give a shit about it until it was out there in the public eye, or based on shit she saw on Twitter, she responded to a guy she's known for a decade and worked with and supposedly respected. I do find that interesting. and I said this on Twitter the other day, it'll be interesting to watch, and you're kind of seeing some of it now. It'll be interesting to watch all these people who claimed Chris D'Elia was funny, I guess because they liked him, and said what a great guy he was and all this. It'll be interesting to see how they react. It is a tough situation, I admit. I don't know that I would have handled it as well as Whitney Cummings. I think I may have actually handled it more like Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub on Fighter and the Kid. They did an episode on Wednesday or Thursday, I think.
I just think it's an impossible situation, and I'm just at a loss. I'm at a loss, and I'm praying that what I'm hearing isn't true. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
I can't talk.
It's just, it's like, it's a weird thing because I said to Brendan, I said, it's like, it's like watching someone die or something. And also, it's just, what's important is that we haven't spoken to Chris.
No.
And we've never been on the road with him. I was on the road with him about 14 years ago once when he was, just beginning, but I've never been on the road with him. So I don't know. I don't know what to think, and I don't know. And that's what's so frustrating. I'm
just sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
So anyway. Yeah. Sometimes that's the best thing to say, is to say, I don't know what to say. And I'm just, I don't know, man. Yeah. It's a fucked up thing.
I can't talk. Fuck.
Well, that's appropriate. That's appropriate right now. You can just pray that that nothing's true.
Because no matter what the facts are, whatever comes out, I'm as shocked as anyone. I'm hurt. I'm mad. I'm fucking mad, man. I'm mad at him.
Okay.
Where they introduced the subject of Chris D'Elia, and Brendan Schaub starts breaking down crying, and Brian Callen kind of gets teary-eyed, and Callen basically says, listen, first of all, he distances himself. He's like, I never went out on the road. I might have gone out on the road with him once 14 years ago, but I've never been out on the road. So that's their first step. But then they kind of say, we just hope it's not true and we don't know what's real. I think that's more how I would handle it, where you don't know exactly what's going on. You're kind of hearing a lot of rumors. D'Elia put out a statement where he says a lot of it's true, a lot of it isn't. I don't know. I'll say this. If this stuff with anyone under 18 or 17 or whatever the ages are, if any of those are true, D'Elia's done, and he should be. That's just you're a pervert. You're breaking the law. I don't really give a shit about you then. The only if I can muster up a defense for Chris D'Elia, it would be that these screenshots of women who are 19 and 20, and people saying that, well, he still used his power in these situations, or if they if they just turned 18 that day, whatever, he used his power, and he grooming, I think, is the word. Then I think there needs to be a discussion about changing laws. Then I think the discussion moves from Chris D'Elia to, well, what's an adult? Do we move the age of consent up to 21? Which is a real, when I was 18, I was very like, you can send me to war, I should be able to have a beer. Now that I'm a little older, I don't really give a shit. If you want to move voting ages up or any of these ages up to 21, I don't have a real problem with that, because I look back when I was 18 and realized that I was a fucking moron, even more than I am now. So I don't have a huge problem with it. But you first have to change the definition of what an adult is. If you're 19 years old and you choose to sleep with a 30-year-old man, that's your choice. You're not a kid anymore. If we want to decide that you are a kid legally, then I think that's a different issue. Because you can't have these things where, yeah, I know legally, I know it's above board as far as the law goes, but it's still weird. It is weird, but we as a society decided there's nothing wrong with it. So those I kind of throw out. Any interaction you had with 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, toss those out the window, because it's weird. I think he's a weird guy. I think he's a creep. I think it's anyone who's in their 30s and wants to interact with 18-year-olds, that's bizarre to me. I can't really wrap my mind around that. I can't imagine having a conversation with an 18-year-old, much less a sexual relationship. So I think it's very weird, but that isn't illegal. Where now, if he's guilty of anything, 16, 17, then fuck him, he's done. You got to know you can't do that. But the other stuff is where it gets strange, where we immediately say, well, even if the 19-year-olds are true, it's still creepy. I guess. But then what do you get for creepiness? Is the punishment death for creepiness? Your career is over. You have to, get an office job and move to Utah. I don't know if that's necessarily the punishment for that. Here's where it gets interesting in the world of comedy. You see Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen crying on their podcast, like I mentioned. Whitney Cummings puts out a statement. All these people that defended Chris D'Elia are now going to feel the need to run away from him. It'll be interesting to see if they start being honest about some of his comedy, but it'll also be interesting to see what else comes out about comedians. And you're starting to see it a little bit. A clip was circulating around with Joey Diaz and Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Of money.
She's lucky she paid 100. I had girls sucking my dick and giving me coke from Chewy. You think I'm fucking kidding you? Fuck yeah, you gotta suck my dick to get up in the belly room. I'll make a call for you. That's the fucking gateway into coming to Hollywood. Everybody knows that.
How many girls did you have do that?
Oh, 20 of them. I had this little blonde open mic chick dog that used to come up to the Comedy Store with a 20 and just take me up to the belly room and suck my dick, then go do her set. She was tremendous.
Wow.
She finally freaked out. When she got to Hollywood, bro, she was beautiful. And when she left, she had dirty fucking, her nails were dirty. And then a year later, she wrote me a letter to the Comedy Store. You cocksucker, you broke me. I kept shooting sperm balls in her fucking earball. Every time she went down, vaya pa la pinga. It ain't broken until somebody fixes it. You know
What is that picture?
A clip from 2011 that shows Joey Diaz basically saying that if a woman wanted to get stage time in front of him, she had to suck his dick. Now, this was said, here's the tricky thing. This was said on a podcast, laughing, in 2011. It was broadcast to the world. Now, what we have to ask ourselves is, was that acceptable at that time? Did we all hear that and laugh? Joe Rogan's podcast was pretty big in 2011. Did we hear that and laugh? Did we hear that and we're disgusted, but we're too afraid to say anything? Do we think it was real at the time? Do we think it was a joke at the time and now we think it's real? That's where we get into some tricky areas. I would say if Joey Diaz was really doing that, certainly wrong. But if he felt comfortable joking about it on a podcast in 2011, I think we should be asking more where we were as a country that he felt comfortable doing that and felt comfortable talking about it. Is that really Joey Diaz's fault, or is it everyone's fault as a society? We can look back now and say, well, everyone knew that was wrong. But I don't know. Did they? If we're joking and laughing about it on a pretty successful podcast, I'm not sure. And then they also try and fuck Joe Rogan for laughing clip. That was trending on Twitter all day yesterday. Joe Rogan, can you believe he laughed at this? And then they try to bring up other stuff about Joe Rogan. He's transphobic, he's homophobic, he's sexist, misogynist. And they bring up these clips that try to expose that. They bring up, very interesting that they bring up him endorsing Bernie Sanders as some sort of, I guess, representation that he's against good liberals, Democrats that support Joe Biden. That's very interesting. But all of this amounts to, Joe Rogan laughed in that clip and said, did you really do that? Is that enough to get Joe Rogan canceled? And why didn't it come up sooner? Why didn't this Chris D'Elia stuff come up sooner? Why didn't this Joey Diaz clip come out sooner? Why was Ari Shaffir banned on Twitter yesterday? Seems very strange that this whole Rogan crew is suddenly getting such shit. All of a sudden, Joe Rogan makes a $100 million deal with Spotify, and you see Rogan trending on Twitter a couple times since then, people trying to bring him down. Now they're coming after his boys, Chris D'Elia, Joey Diaz. Now, again, I think the Chris D'Elia one is pretty clearly, some of that is very wrong. So I don't have a problem with them going after him. Joey Diaz is more of a gray area. Ari Shaffir, I don't understand at all. Ari didn't get banned after the Kobe Bryant thing. All of a sudden yesterday, to my knowledge, he doesn't tweet anything. He's gone from Twitter. If you search Ari Shaffir, nothing comes up. Very strange. I don't know what that is. I do know that people have said if they're making videos on this, hopefully this is the highest viewed episode of Drop the Mic, because some videos are just blowing up simply by tagging Joe Rogan in these names. Very interesting. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if the forums like YouTube are now saying, hey, fuck Joe Rogan. He's leaving us. He's going exclusive to Spotify. Let's take this guy down now. Maybe Milo Yiannopoulos was right when he predicted last year that Joe Rogan's day was coming, that they weren't going to allow a guy like that to be as successful as he was. I think that'll be interesting to watch going forward. I also think it'll be interesting to watch and see what Joe Rogan does. Someone pointed out to me that Ari Shaffir has not been on the Joe Rogan Experience since the Kobe Bryant thing. Now, coronavirus may be a big part of that. Maybe Ari hasn't been to California since then. Rogan's guests are all in studio. Maybe it's just a coincidence. It'll be interesting to see now. Is Joey Diaz ever a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience? I don't know how he's going to handle that. I think that group will be interesting to watch. And then you hear rumors of other guys. You hear maybe the reason Brendan Schaub cried is because maybe there's rumors and allegations about him. You start to hear that more and more. And now we've got other rumors coming about this guy I wouldn't consider in the Joe Rogan camp. So this is off my conspiracy theory. But now Jeff Ross has allegations against him. And the Jeff Ross allegations are very interesting. Because I just 100% believe them. If you watch the video this woman put on Facebook, I think I tweeted out a link or retweeted a link yesterday. The woman has pictures and ticket stubs that prove where she was, who she was with. Apparently, she worked for super agent Barry Katz back in the day. If you're a comedy fan, you've heard Barry Katz impersonated or referenced. He was kind of a sleazeball manager that managed a lot of these guys early on in their careers. So I guess this girl started working as an assistant or receptionist or something for Barry Katz when she was 15 and a half, she says, in the late 90s. And Jeff Ross got her tickets for a Friars Club roast. He was very inappropriate with her, at the age 15 and 16. So that's starting to come out now. Meanwhile, Jeff Ross has a TV show on TBS. These allegations were a couple of years ago, but you're only seeing them in response. If you look on Twitter, you're only seeing them in response to links to some show Jeff Ross is on. So it's interesting what gets immediate reaction. Chris D'Elia, people put out screenshots of Chris D'Elia, immediately it blows up everywhere. Someone puts a video of Joey Diaz making these comments, 9 years ago. Immediately that goes everywhere. This girl puts a video on Facebook with a detailed account of her relationship with Jeff Ross 2 years ago. And all of a sudden it's kind of popping up and you're still not really hearing about it. I find that all very interesting. I don't know what to make of it. Maybe we'll start investigating. A Drop the Mic investigation. We'll look into why some of that's happening, but I would say keep your eyes peeled. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but it is unusual that would all happen now. And then we bring up my friend Michaela Oakland. And I think what she did is a very poor way. She did a good job breaking this story. Well, I can't even say she necessarily did a good job. She broke the story, which, if it's true, is good. She did not do a good job with it because I don't believe she looked into any of the accusations. She just saw something and put it out there immediately without any real journalistic work. But again, if true, she did a good job. Francis Ellis, formerly of Barstool Sports, now of the Oops podcast, he puts out a song mocking Chris D'Elia.
The age of consent in our country varies state to state. Memorize the song so you don't statutory rape. 18 is the age in Utah Utah, Oregon, Arizona, Idaho and Delaware, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Florida, Virginia, California, Tennessee. If you like them even younger, time to learn your 17s.
And guys of that ilk, mocking these predatory men, which is, again, if some of those actions aren't against the law, then what you do is kind of shame them publicly. And you do it creatively rather than just this anger fest we have on social media now. Maybe you do it like Chris D'Elia did and just embarrass him and humiliate him, mock the fuck out of him. So Francis does a song about the age of consent. I found it very funny. Maybe you didn't. That's fine. But the issue is not people finding it funny. It's people purposely or just through sheer ignorance, I guess. Maybe this generation doesn't know what satire is, or they do, and they're choosing to ignore it and pretend that Francis is also a creep. So that's my real problem with all this, is that we're so thirsty for blood. We got Chris D'Elia. You got him. If all that shit's true, it was a warranted attack. You took him down. No one's ever going to look at him the same again. His friends are running from him. Brian Callen deleted any ties to him on Instagram after they did that podcast. His friends are running away scared from Chris D'Elia. His career's pretty much over. You got him. My problem with that movement is their thirst is never quenched. They got to keep going. Now it's Francis who's on your side. Francis is doing the work of the good people. He's humiliating Chris D'Elia. And what you do is try to paint him as a creep and then take him down. And then Francis says, no, you're not going to fuck with me. I've got nothing to lose here. How about you and I have a discussion about it? How about we have a debate? We could do it for charity, however you want to do it. Nah, we'll ignore you. We're just going to call you a creep again. Let people think that. So for the big base that Michaela Oakland was able to expose Chris D'Elia on, I almost call it a wash, because then she also takes down an innocent man and paints him as some kind of a pervert. So I would suggest to all the people that, think they're doing this great work by exposing people, you are, in a way. Just take a deep breath and expose the right people. It's not everyone we have to go after. Not everyone needs to be taken down. Not everyone who doesn't agree with you to a T hates you. There are some people that you may not see eye to eye on 100%, but overall they're on your side. And if you keep attacking those people, you're going to drive them away. And you will turn them into some sort of monster. And that's not a good thing at all. That's not a good thing for anyone. So I would say keep an eye on the Chris D'Elia stuff. I do believe he's guilty. Just the sheer amount of Snapchat and text messages and emails and all this stuff. Odd that he communicates through email. That is unusual. Maybe he's trying to prove his innocence somehow. But either he is a creep. There's no doubt about that. I guess the only doubt would be from a legal aspect. And then it'll also be interesting to see if his name is cleared of any legal wrongdoing. It'll be interesting to see if he's cleared in the comedy community, if they bring him back and embrace him. The other thing I look at is comedy in general. So we played that Joey Diaz clip. And you hear in there a conversation that maybe I'm being too lenient about it, because I've heard so many of these conversations, from Jim Norton to Jim Jeffries to Joey Diaz to the Legion of Skanks, whoever it is, pick your example. Comedians for years, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, have told some vulgar fucking sex stories. Artie Lang, another great example. Anyone on Howard Stern's show. Now do we go back and dig up these perverted stories and paint these guys as villains rather than the schmucks they were in the stories? They're never the heroes of these stories. It's self-deprecating humor telling a lot of these stories. But do we now kind of dig those up and make these guys villains, creeps, perverts, whatever? Not to give you guys a roadmap if you want to do it, but a guy like Jim Norton would be the easiest. These guys who were brutally honest for 20 years and said, because I'm honest, now you have nothing on me. Well, we figured out a way to get you. We decided to change how things are looked at and go back 10, 15, 20 years and find things to expose you on. So that'll be interesting as well. I would keep my eye on that. I would say guys like the Legion of Skanks don't have anything he can take away. Jim Norton, I guess you could take his radio show away. But maybe they only go after Chris D'Elia because he's starting to get famous. Maybe they only go after Joey Diaz because Rogan just got that $100 million deal. It's interesting when they decide to take you down. We talked about that with Shane Gillis early on in this program. A month before that, Shane Gillis had nothing to be taken away from him. Then he gets SNL and he can attack. So is it morals that lead Michaela Oakland or who? You know what? I take that back. That's not right of me. Michaela Oakland was probably doing it with positivity in her heart. I actually do believe that. But the people that use Michaela Oakland and people like that, are they doing it because they finally want to get their story out there or get someone else's story out there? Or is it kind of just good timing to fuck with someone's life? I don't know. And it's also strange that even saying that, even questioning that, could get me in trouble. And people think the way people think of me would change because I say that. Meanwhile, I have no problem with Chris D'Elia's career being over if those things are true. I have no problem with him getting beaten up on social media. And if they're, again, if the stuff under 18 is true, I have no problem with him going to fucking jail. Good riddance. See you later. Yet somehow this will be looked at as a defense of a guy like Chris D'Elia. That's strange as well, and it's something we should open our eyes to and take notice of. But who am I? I don't know. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of history here. We'll see as we go forward. We'll see if they get guys like Ari Shaffir. We'll see where this Jeff Ross thing goes, and we'll see who they go to next. But it is odd that of all of them, the one you hear least about is Jeff Ross. And that's the one by far with the most evidence. I find that unusual. We will get back to next week some of our sillier stuff. Maybe, then is the 4th of July coming up. We'll see. We'll see how things go. Hopefully we'll be back next week. If not, we'll figure it out, and I will let you know at Drop the Mic YT on Twitter, at Blind Mike _ on Twitter, and we'll talk to you next week.